Welcome to Taking the Higher Road, a DriverReach and FreightWaves production. I'm your host, Jenny Reymer, founder and CEO of DriverReach. On this show, I interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver lifecycle as we discuss the industry's greatest challenges, driver recruiting and retention. I appreciate your feedback on the contents of the show. If you aren't already a subscriber, I encourage you to become one and rate Taking the Higher Road in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and wherever else you listen. Today, I'm excited to chat with Jenny Abernathy, Vice President, Enterprise Capacity Development, Driver Recruiting at CRST International. Welcome to Taking the Higher Road, Jenny. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Jeremy. Happy to be here.
Now, there's a lot I'd like to cover today. And for one, your background prior to getting into trucking, your involvement in LEAD ATA, a special program that promotes the future leaders of the trucking industry, and how you and CRST have adapted and improved in this ever-challenging time. Plus, of course, we'll also take a deeper dive where I'll have you answer one of the questions submitted by a listener. Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Now, before we get into all that, I'm curious, have you traveled at all recently or attending any industry events?
Yeah, so we did some recent travel. My family and I, we live in Iowa, so we took a road trip to Florida. It's a little chilly here, so we made our destination, our social distancing on the beach not too long ago. So that's been really great, and just started to get out, see more CRST sites not too long ago. But, I've been on site here for several months, so my clothes still fit, which was a really good box to check off. Got out of the sweatpants and back into my work gear. So we're ready to go out and, get to see more people across the industry soon. So,
well, speaking of, kind of clothes still fitting, it's been 14 months, for me. I haven't really gone anywhere. And so just last week, ATRI had the Research Advisory Committee meeting. And so I was in Atlanta. First time I'd been wearing, slacks and a sports coat and dress shoes. And I was telling my wife as I was, heading out to catch a plane, I said, man, these shoes really hurt my feet. And she says, well, yeah, you've been wearing slippers every day for a year. So
you're going to have to
take some getting
switch
used
out
to.
of the heels next time. Yeah.
Right. Take some getting used to. Now, when I first met you a few years ago, it was clear you were super outgoing, very engaging, never met a stranger. And it appeared as if you'd been in the industry, all your life and you knew everyone. But I know that's not the case. You are approaching 6 years at CRST, but can you share what you were doing before you joined CRST? Kind of what background did you bring into the trucking industry?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. That's really kind words. I really appreciate that. But you're right. So this summer will be 6 years for me at CRST. I feel like sometimes I'm in my very first year still, and year, and then sometimes I'm like, these are dog years, and I've been here forever. I've been here for 40 years, but almost 6 years. So not sure that makes me a rookie or an experienced expert. But prior to CRST, I had a whole career in retail. So I was with Target Corporation. Was really lucky to cross paths and be mentored with a lot of really great leaders there. For those of you that have never, known Target, their culture is really incredible. They're really fanatical about driving results, but, really focused on having a strong balance of developing and, engaging talent at all different levels. So spent 12 years there, came out of college. I was an intern there, worked, in a variety of different leadership roles, both with daily operations for stores. And then, my last half of my career was what we call multi-unit leadership. And so that capacity was something I really loved. I had to really be challenged to think differently, influence at higher levels. I worked with a lot of, diverse leaders across multiple states and, really had to learn how to communicate thoughtfully and gain buy-in, to drive change, and sometimes didn't always have the authority to do it. So, how I partnered was really important. And, being resilient was a big part of what we were doing. In retail, also, everything was constantly changing, just like in trucking. So, but the other piece of that is, root causing problems. Problem solving is something that I've, kind of found is my happy place, because, no two stores were alike at, Target, just like no two problems in trucking are alike. So that time has really shaped me, I think, into the, leader I am today, and brought really a lot of influence into how I, lead at CRST.
Now, how do you feel that that experience helped you embrace a new industry with its own set of challenges? I mean, there's a lot of commonalities as you kind of described. Do you feel like some of the leadership, the trajectory that you were on there, kind of really helped you in a new role in a totally new industry?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So, when I interview people, they ask me all the time about my background, and I tell them during my interview process with CRST, and I interacted with quite a few of the vice presidents and leaders, It was really easy to start to see correlations between retail and transportation. They're really, both are very results-driven industries. They're fast-paced, but, deep in the core, it's just all about people and, people management and bringing the best out of one another. So I'm not going to pretend like that transition wasn't hard, but I think my time in retail, there was this mantra that we had that the only thing constant at Target was change. So that helped me really quickly, I think, adjust to transportation. My 6 years here, the ebbs and flows of the freight market or the driver capacity market has been, just like it's like a roller coaster. But that fits really well with, people management, problem solving. I think I get really energized when there are big obstacles or big hills to climb. And lucky for me, because that feels like a constant in this industry also. So I kind of spoke to this, but one of my previous roles at Target before coming to CRST was about, supporting stores. And so I used to run a store, and then they transitioned me into this multi-unit. I moved from having, direct impact every day on a result to kind of really high operations focused, and then went to support. And I was supporting 60 stores across 3 states and didn't have a ton of the authority. So I had to really learn how to think about, unique challenges, different businesses, different teams, and adjust how I, my tactics or my strategies or my communication to help them be their best, which helped, me be my best. And so helped me learn how to listen, be accountable to my performance, but really think about their outcomes as being my outcomes. And that helped me evolve, how I led. So I think when I think about CRST and specifically driver recruiting, the fact that, we're a critical component clearly of any trucking company. Recruiting is critical, but we don't earn any revenue. We're not revenue generating. The drivers are, and our operations teams that support them really are. And so, as I take that support role from my past and really integrate that into what I do, at CRST, it's about listening and responding to the needs of our operations partners and our drivers. And, I really fully recognize that and embrace that. And my team is critical to that component of success, but, we're here to support. And that strong partnership, I think, has really helped. We've built it with operations, our safety teams, and our senior leaders, that we need to be, really good stewards and embrace their needs and, constantly look at ways to generate new ideas and, new solutions to help them succeed, which in turn, it's a win-win. It helps, me succeed. So high accountability to overall company success comes from that support. I think, that's what we're always laser focused on.
Well, you've been in leadership roles, all of your career. As a member of the American Trucking Associations, you were recently recognized as one of the up-and-coming bright stars in the industry and participated in ATA's most recent Lead ATA program. Now, full disclosure, DriverReach is a sponsor of this program, and I love the idea of promoting the industry's future leaders. I know this wasn't a typical year for Lead ATA. What have you learned through the program, though? I mean, in spite of that, I would imagine it was pretty enlightening.
Yeah, we're still underway, and so it's definitely been different. But coming from outside, it's really incredible to see that there's so many, people in this industry looking to contribute. So far, for Lead, we've, clearly interacted with one another. We've started really interacting with, executive committees and previous ATA, Lead members. And so that's really opened my eyes that, this industry can feel like a really small family, which is really incredible for how really big it is. But there are people really passionate about this industry. Doesn't matter if they're recruiting, operations, analytics, safety. I mean, there's just all corners of the world in trucking. There's people out there making, a difference and contributing in the industry. And, that's not always something that I got to see before. And so that's really eye-opening. There's a lot of people with a lot of passion, and it really helps, me see where I can fit into, changing and growing and helping this industry be great in the future.
Well, I know this is, I think, maybe 8th or 9th Lead ATA group. Do you know?
That sounds about right.
I know, and the reason why I say that is because all those other years, that those groups are able to really, they really gel, they bond, they spend a lot of time together, get to know each other because they're going to different events throughout the year. But you haven't had the luxury of that same sort of dynamic. This is your first time, right? Coming up, your first time where you'll all be actually together and meeting people in person for the first time. Are you looking forward to that?
Yeah, I am. We have the, ATA mid-year management session coming up, real soon here. And it will be the first time together. So we've had Zoom events and we've had, everything online and digital. And it's just a little bit different than never meeting in person. So I think there's going to be probably a few drinks shared, a few stories told. I imagine we'll have a lot of good bonding coming up over the next few days. So really excited to meet everyone in person.
Now, from your experience in the program, any words of advice or suggestions for any others who may be interested in participating in the Lead ATA program?
Yeah, I think for me, I absolutely remember, recommend being a part of it. I remember looking back, coming in, thinking, what will I gain? And just the insight that others bring that helps you open your mind, to what the industry challenges are, what you're facing isn't always, it's the tip of the iceberg. And so I think it's a great experience to kind of broaden your horizons, get you out of your day to day and be thinking bigger, which is, I think, really great for anyone's personal development, but also their personal impact on the industry. And it helps you think about all the resources that are out there. It's sometimes when you're in the fight every day, you think about, what can I do today? But there's a lot of people out there that can help support and bring new ideas. And, we're not always the smartest person in the room, but there's always somebody else we can lean on. And so, I think certainly I would recommend either nominating leaders into it or certainly becoming a part of it and embracing it as a, part of someone's development for their future.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's a great program, and again, I'm really excited to be sponsoring you. So I look forward to seeing you at the mid-year management meeting. I would like to switch gears though and talk about some of the challenges that the industry is currently facing with recruiting and retention, which is a perfect segue to our special segment, A Deeper Dive, where we take a question from a listener seeking expert advice. The question is, how can I get buy-in? Interesting that's what you actually talked about earlier. How can I get buy-in from leadership that we can't keep doing the same things that aren't working anymore? We aren't growing, and there's such an opportunity right now. Thoughts on buy-in?
Yeah, what a great question, because if there's anything I think we're all facing right now is, how do we change? How do we evolve? And, freight's abundant, and rates are strong, but the driver market is, super challenging. And so, for anyone in those shoes, first and foremost, if you're, looking to try something new right now, that could be really pivotal for your company's growth. And so if you're pushing for change, keep pushing. You're doing the right thing. So it's whether, you want to evolve how you recruit or how you advertise or what you do to support your drivers differently, or maybe you want to explore a new freight vertical. I think, this is the year that, everyone is evolving their approaches. It's the right time to sharpen our focus. And so if you're in that fight, it's worth it. Keep fighting. But for me, I think I'd recommend, how you influence, whether it's senior leaders or those around you in key leadership roles. I'd always recommend looking at how does it impact the business. So what are you recommending to grow or change and do? And then lean on data to support that. I think anyone that's making business decisions wants to understand the data behind it or the reasons why. It's also really hard to argue with data and facts. And so you've got that in your corner if, those things indicate change is needed. We read a book as a leadership team a couple years back here called The Speed of Trust. And it kind of gets to the core of what's, you got that in there?
I do. I have it on my shelf. I do. I have it. I don't think I've read it yet. Oh, thank you for saying that. Now I'll read it.
Yeah, you need to. And so for us, it talks about key behaviors. So there's, 12 or 13 key behaviors. And we've leaned into a couple of those this year, probably more so than any other. And the two are talk straight and confront reality. So, really important parts of having trust on a team or in a unit. And so if people are looking to change and evolve, you can't bury your head in the sand any longer. Probably couldn't 5 years ago, but you certainly can't anymore. And so you've got to have those hard conversations. And, if you can respectfully review the reality of your current situation and, back it up with data that support your new ideas, I think that can go a long way to build respect and maybe find clarity in a solution. And then it's important to remember that change is hard. It's scary. Sometimes when you're looking to drive a change, it's like jumping off a cliff where you can't see the water below you, right? You don't know where you're going to fall. And so, put thought into researching the competition and, what would you recommend for those changes and how can you be a part of the implementation? Because, change can come with heavy lift and do your research and lean on others. That's, one thing we kind of talked about with Lead ETA, but the amount of people in this industry that are coming up with new ideas and trying different things. Usually they're all way better at it than I am, but I listen and I ask and then I think about how it can pertain to me and my team or, CRST, and you can come up with a lot of new innovative ways to do your business by leaning on others. So ask for advice and help mold things. And, if you go to the competition and do research on them and bring that back, no one wants to get beat out by the competition. So that could be highly influential too, to kind of lean on for, driving change. So certainly at CRST, I've only been here almost 6 years, and we're constantly looking at ways to grow, constantly looking at ways to change, and the landscape in trucking is ever evolving. So if you're here to influence change, if you're looking to drive something different, keep it up. Right now is the right time to do it.
Yeah, and if you're not growing, you're dying. And I think that's you and I have talked before about the importance of leaning into the challenges that we're facing. And one of my favorite mantras this past year has been, never let a good crisis go to waste. And we've talked about that, and COVID and the challenges that it has brought is also, there's been some silver lining as well. I'm curious, how have you and CRST confronted these challenges, and how has your recruiting and retention efforts evolved, especially maybe over the last 6 months or so?
Yeah. I mean, we say a very similar thing here. Our CEO kind of pushes that also with, if there's never let that crisis go to waste. And so 6 to 12 months, it's been a crazy couple of, months, feels like years. But, I first think about when we first, hit COVID, we went remote, and my entire team, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 people, started working remotely, including me. And that was really hard at first, trying to figure out how to communicate, how to keep up with one another, how to hold people accountable, how to train, how to just navigate that landscape. And, certainly we've evolved and gotten better at it. But, silver lining, it really helped us open our eyes up to a whole different workforce. We had remote recruiters in the past. We've certainly grown that talent pool. We've added leadership that's remote. We've started to learn how to train better remote and provide tools and resources that are remote. And so, we're making our way back on site locally, but we've, onboarded all kinds of remote people onto our team that have really helped us diversify. And location shouldn't be our deciding factor. Talent and skill set should be. And so that's been, I just think, a really great, add for us as a team. But there's been a lot of other, things that have evolved and changed. I think about, CRST certainly has a core skill set of driver training. And this, 2020 certainly shook the CDL training a bit at its core. And so as COVID hit, we stayed really committed to, providing a great onboarding experience and training for those looking to join the industry. And we, really aggressively sought out more training school partners. And even when, they were struggling to get people through their programs, we, partnered up with them. We partnered up with local DMVs and just tried to find solutions for drivers that didn't want to be sidelined, and, how to safely get into the industry. And, that's been really great for us. We've started to really place, more people out where students are, and get, really fully embrace field recruiting, and, think about how do we meet students where they are so we can help be a part of their success and keep that pipeline of talent coming into CRST, into the industry, so that, we don't see those barriers going forward. And then probably most recently, that I think we're all living this pain point of the cost to advertise, the cost to just get applicants in your door is different. I think about what it was a year ago to today. It's been a pretty staggering change. And so, we're looking internally now on how to be better at what we do. So whether that's recruiting or marketing, we're looking at areas to train our staff on, how do we eliminate waste in recruiting? There's waste all around us, and, taking the opportunity now to really hone in on our skill sets for our recruiters. If we get in front of an applicant, we have to make that experience exceptional. We've got to stand apart. We've got to have, the training and tools to give them every driving opportunity. There's a lot of driving opportunities at CRST, and our recruiters need to feel really comfortable, explaining those and hooking that driver up with the one that's just the right fit for them. So with costs rising, we can't be wasteful. We've got to really maximize, every experience that we have with a potential driver and make sure that we're giving them our best. We do have a small internal marketing team, and they've really focused also on, getting our brand and our jobs and our opportunities out in the marketplace organically. So we don't always have to rely on paid advertisement. Really putting us out there where people can find us is a really great solution to start, generating, resources that, can help you be present where the applicant is, and, convert at a hopefully a lower cost, or at a higher rate. So, and really, just in the last probably 60 days, something that was long overdue for CRST was we really started looking at our driver referral program. So, a great area to, pay your drivers, your office staff, anyone, that works for you to really engage in the driver recruiting funnel. And, we dusted that off and said, it's just not as strong as it could be. So, that's another area we're looking at right now that really should evolve how we recruit in the future. So, lots of challenges in the last 6 to 12 months. I think we'll all come out better for it. or I hope we'll come out better for it, because there's certainly been a lot of, for us, growth and learning along the way.
Well, you're not shrinking from the challenge, that's for sure. That's encouraging. This year, it seems there's also a lot more talk about retaining drivers, recognizing that the best way to keep drivers, or to recruit drivers, I should say, is to keep the ones you've got. What do you see as the best way or ways to retain drivers when they're getting solicited, on a daily basis?
Yeah, I mean, I'm soliciting all your drivers right now on a daily basis. So that's a really great question. And something we face every day. I've started really, there's been a lot of conversation about this in the industry right now. I'm constantly listening to what advice is out there and what can we learn and take from other industry leaders on how to build out driver communities and, give better support mechanisms, or really think about communication and that cadence, to make sure that drivers are informed and they're supported and hopefully retained with us long term. And so, I think for CRST, a lot of people don't know this, but we began transitioning individual operating companies over the last year into one CRST, really starting in 2020. But we officially transitioned our dedicated fleets and our flatbed fleets and our solo local and our team over the road fleets into one brand, and we really kicked that off this past January. So for us, it's given kind of a fresh way to look at our team as a whole, our driving partners as a whole, and what enterprise-wide changes can we implement to provide the best experience. And so, some of them are about making better decisions to have the best fleet. And we've, looked at our drivers, and we're implementing hair testing, and that's something that we weren't doing before. And, putting that in place so that we've got the best drivers, that want to be with us. But, part of it is about evolving with our drivers, and we seek out and look for feedback at a larger scale and think about those trends that, instead of doing it each little individual, operating division, we do it as a whole. And, as COVID hit, driver needs really changed. They wanted to be home more often. That was certainly the biggest one that probably hit us. And we have a really healthy, strong team over the road fleet that used to stay out for 3 to 4 weeks at a time. And, our operations teams wanted to address that. They looked at our freight networks, they re-engineered things, and so our over the road network, a lot higher percentage of our drivers are getting home weekly now instead of staying out for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. And there's a lot of freight opportunities right now, so we're really leaning into growing dedicated, growing solo, and expanding opportunities and giving meeting drivers where they want to be met. I think that's really important. I think everyone's evolving their driver compensation. That's certainly something that we've looked at. Also, we had a significant step up in our driver pay. I think paying those fleets what they deserve is important. Drivers certainly deserve it. And then we, like everyone, have gone back and asked for rate increases from our customers, and our, independent contractors are at record earnings. And so, I think that certainly helps sustain a fleet of, to feel rewarded for the work they're putting in there. So, probably the other thing that we've changed in the past year, to really give better support for the drivers and, our drivers, is to be present with them in their career. So we added a team of career advisors. So there's lots of opportunities. Any carrier that's got, of good size has, real diversity in driver opportunities, but not always the best way to share that with a driver when that's, kind of maybe burned out in the position they're in. So we added career advisors in. They can give knowledge and support if, the position a driver's in isn't what they want anymore, if it doesn't fit their needs. Instead of seeking something else out, outside of CRST, we want them to certainly look internal. So we look at, how do we provide training opportunities? How do we, really look at upskilling for our drivers? So if they want to get their hazmat or TWIC, how do we support them if they want to, move into a specialized fleet and, get hands-on experience, with high touch, or if they want to get securement training and transition into flatbed, we're trying to look at how do we provide those opportunities all in-house, explore being an independent contractor, running their own business. Those are all opportunities that our career advisors now can really help guide and, provide a solution for. So it's important to become an employer of choice. You have to evolve. You got to, stay in front of where your drivers want you to be and make sure you meet them there, which is, clearly critical. The men and women on the front line certainly deserve that.
Well, it's encouraging to hear how you've embraced the challenges ahead of you, and how you and CRST are really forging ahead and really leaning into this. It's been a pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I do look forward to seeing you finally again very soon. Thanks again so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks for joining me for another episode of Taking the Higher Road, and for spreading the word to your industry peers. We really appreciate it. Remember to follow along at driverreach.com/podcast. Please submit any questions or comments, including those which may appear on upcoming deeper dive segments at podcast@driverreach.com. And don't forget to rate and review the Taking the High Road podcast in Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and wherever else you tune in. Until next time, thank you for taking the higher road.